We are back with a second video of the day here at Bengals Breakdown as we have a new report from James Rapien. Does a fantastic job, of course, covering the Cincinnati Bengals for Cincinnati Bengals Talk on YouTube as well as Cincinnati Bengals on Sports Illustrated. The Cincinnati Bengals are expected and planning on using the non-exclusive franchise tag on Tee Higgins for the second consecutive year. Obviously, this is very noteworthy, and I think it is pretty much expected as well that Cincinnati was going to go down this route. Obviously, in a perfect world, Cincinnati wouldn't have to place this franchise tag on him, and there would be an agreement between Higgins and the organization in terms of a long-term deal. But for now, a franchise tag certainly is a promising sign, and it feels like this year things are a little bit different as far as where things will go after Cincinnati does place the franchise tag on him. So we've got more thoughts here to come on today's show, but first, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Anytime we've got some Cincinnati Bengals breaking news, we will be here with a video for you guys on Bengals Breakdown. So hit that sub button, youtube.com/BengalsTV. Of course, Cincinnati tagged Tee Higgins last season on February 26th, but beyond that, there really wasn't much dialogue between Higgins and the organization when it came to a long-term extension, but James Rapien reporting that this time around it feels different, and that really is the most noteworthy thing about Cincinnati planning on placing the franchise tag on Tee Higgins once again. They are planning on extending him and moving forward with their relationship with Tee Higgins as a Cincinnati Bengal. Obviously, several things have happened between now and last season, right? Of course, Tee Higgins most notably fired his agent, David Mulligetta, during the season. Mulligetta, of course, and the Bengals really haven't gotten along. A client of Mulligetta has never reached an extension with the Cincinnati Bengals. So that was the first sign of, hey, Tee Higgins might be sticking around. He's firing his agent, and now he is represented by the same people that represent Jamar Chase. Beyond that, Joe Burrow also had some comments about Tee Higgins, and it really started to surface once Cincinnati's season and their playoff hopes were essentially out of reach. Really back in December, Burrow started talking about wanting Tee Higgins to be around long term and wanting him to be a part of the solution for this football team going forward. And we're actually going to bring back some of what Joe Burrow had to say in December here in a moment. But first, the pinned comment of today's video. What is your one-word reaction to the Bengals planning on tagging Tee Higgins? Mine, honestly, is expected, right? This is kind of the expected outcome. Again, I mentioned it at the top. Perfect world, you don't have to do this, right? You come to terms on an extension. But for me, I would say this is expected. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section of today's video. Give me your one-word reaction. If that ad comes here on YouTube, that's totally fine. Take advantage of it. Get down in the comments. Let us know what you think. Obviously, Tee Higgins is very, very important to this football team. That really goes without saying. And I think we saw it when he wasn't out on the football field this past season. Really, Jamar Chase is a fantastic wide receiver. Of course, in my opinion, the best wide receiver in the National Football League. But when he's got Tee Higgins out there with him, it really unlocks a whole different aspect of Jamar Chase's game. And I don't think Jamar Chase goes out there and wins the Triple Crown if Tee Higgins isn't lined up opposite of him. Tee Higgins certainly can do so many great things on the football field for you. And really, the biggest thing to me, obviously he's a great football player, but there's several great football players in this league. It's the fact that your franchise quarterback continued to go to bat for Tee Higgins, and really you want to avoid any friction between Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals front office. And I think step one in making sure that doesn't happen is extending Tee Higgins and reaching a long-term agreement with him. And again, that is what James Rapien is being told by sources around the league, that Cincinnati does indeed plan on using that tag on Higgins, but ultimately with the goal of reaching a long-term deal with the Bengals wide receiver. Let's bring back some of those comments from Joe Burrow back in December that he made. This is what Joe said. He said, "I expect T to be back. I think that's the sentiment in the locker room. We all want T back. We know what kind of player he is. We know what kind of person he is. He's what being a Bengal is all about." So like you said, we'll see, but I think we have a good opportunity. T is a need. Yes, I'd be very disappointed in that. of course, meaning if Tee Higgins were not to come back. He's very important. It's not even just his production, it's his presence. It's how he comes to work every day, how the defenses have to play us when he's out there. Tee plays such a big part in what we do here and has for 5 years now. I don't think you can quite put a value on that. Another opportunity for you guys to get involved with our show here at Bengals Breakdown. Will the Bengals and Tee Higgins come to terms on an extension? Again, this is the plan for this organization, much different than last season. They are planning on moving forward and reaching an agreement with him. Do you think this ultimately happens, or are the Bengals going to screw around once again and mess this up? Let me know in the comment section. Type Y for yes or N for no. Also, want to give a shout out to our friends over at Fanatics. Let you guys know that Bengals Sideline Hats are out and available now. I've got a few of these myself. They've got some really cool ones up on their website at Fanatics. Really encourage you guys to go over there, check them out. Obviously, it is the offseason, but that doesn't mean you can't get some Bengals swag here, courtesy of our friends over at Fanatics. Check out that link. It will be in the comment section and the description of today's video, chatsports.com/Bengals Sideline. So really, I think we expected this news to come pretty soon, right? Because the deadline to tag is March 4th. And that doesn't necessarily mean Cincinnati has to reach an extension with Tee Higgins before that date. But they did have to, make some action before that date because they weren't going to let Tee Higgins hit the open market, right? If Tee Higgins hit the open market, he'd be probably the best free agent wide receiver in a really, really long time. Really can't put exactly a year on that, but I can't remember somebody of his talent hitting the free market as a free agent. No way Cincinnati was going to let that happen, planning on tagging him. Here's what Rapien said in his piece. It's up there right now on Cincinnati Bengals on Sports Illustrated. Really does a great job of breaking down this whole situation. Here's what Rapien wrote. He said, last year the Bengals tagged Higgins, and there wasn't much dialogue about a long-term contract. He was the only player that was tagged by his team last year that didn't sign a multi-year extension. This year feels different. The Bengals plan to sign the star receiver to a long-term deal, sources say. If it doesn't, meaning if Cincinnati and Higgins cannot reach an agreement, Cincinnati plans to use the non-exclusive franchise tag for a second straight year. That does mean a team could negotiate a long-term deal with Higgins, but it would cost them 2 first-round picks if the Bengals didn't match the contract. That's highly unlikely. Higgins will make $26.17 million on the franchise tag, but those numbers would change if he agrees to a new contract. The numbers have to work, but the Bengals and Higgins are hoping to reach a long-term agreement that would keep him in Cincinnati. Obviously, if this pans out, I am super, super excited, right? The season that Tee Higgins has, sure, he fought injuries. Sure, there's some red flags when it comes to his injuries. But, ultimately, I wanted Tee Higgins to be back in Cincinnati, and it looks like things are trending in the right direction in terms of the organization and Higgins' team making that happen. So some significant news here this afternoon. The Bengals planning on tagging wide receiver Tee Higgins here in the coming days with the expectation that they will be able to reach a long-term agreement.